Welcome to my channel. My name is Brian and you're watching The Build It Place. In this video we're going to be modifying what I originally had. This lower die had 1/4 inch angle for this lower die support, so I'm going to change that to 3/8 inch. I'm going to change these the bolts, the mounting bolts, to grade 8 bolts. I'm going to be putting a alignment mark here in the center between the dies, so that when you have a part, you can align the center of the bend with these alignment marks on both sides. And then I'm also going to put a mounting hole here so that you can mount this down to the deck of the press. The other thing I'm going to be doing is I'll be putting marks on here to alignment mark on the upper die, so you can line that, your metal, up with the upper die and these little notches here. The last thing I want to do is I want to make this easier to make repetitive bends. So I'm going to adapt a back gauge so that you can use a back gauge with this, so you can set that gauge to a certain distance and make repetitive bends. So let's go to work. Looking at my drawing, I need to come up to mark this new angle. I'm going to come up 1.188 from the bottom. So I'm just going to scribe a line at 1 3/16 or 1. Okay, then we're going to come from, first dimension is going to be 1 inch. I can use this for now. Come out 1 inch. And we're going to measure everything from one side going over. It's a mistake to go the other way. Inch, then 2 inches. And we'll just keep on marking this down based on the drawing. I got a different square, but it's a 24-inch square, but just make it a little bit big. So we got to go 2, 4, 5.5. I think that'll be the next one if I'm doing my math right in my head. So go 5.5. Then we'll go 6.5. And the final one will be 7.5 inches from the edge. And this will be marked. Hold down, we want that to be 1.25 inches from the back edge up. And then it's going to be centered. So that should be 4.25 from the edge. This is nice. This is a nice, easy to read square, combination square. Okay, so that should be that's gonna be our mounting hole. Then for alignment purposes, I'm gonna put a mark here. That should be the center of the die this way. So that will give me where I'm gonna put a notch. So that'll be our alignment for the center, where the upper die is going to come right down in the center. So it'll be the center between the two lower die rollers. I have a shop-made center point that I'll use to line the vise up. Get this lined up, the vise lined up exactly right. That looks good right there. So tighten this nuts down, or bolts down onto the vise, and we'll make sure nothing is moved after we do that. And it doesn't appear that it's moved. We'll get the last bit of torque on these bolts. Double check, make sure we're good. Still look pretty good, so we're going to call that good. Okay, to line the holes, I have a center point I chuck in to the drill. And then I'll take and slide this piece of angle iron down until I line up the hole. Let's get the hole lined up. Then I'll tighten this down. And then I'll double check, make sure it's straight. It's off just a little bit. A block of wood, and I can tap it down this way. That's good. Tighten the vise up. I'm going to take the center punch out. Put a pilot drill in. Key it in. Drill a pilot. I can step up to the next size. Drill bit. Should be still aligned perfectly. And we'll drill our 1/2 inch. That's our final diameter. And then we'll be ready to go to the next. It's hard to get this one drilled. That concludes that hole. The last hole is going to put is the hole that's going to hold this lower die to the press itself. So we're going to have to loosen up these bolts that hold the vise down. We're going to move this just a little bit to line it where we want these holes to be. So I'm just going to a place where there's where the line is, and I'm going to line this up in this axis here. I'm not going to worry about centering the necessary center in the hole itself, just getting that line set up, and then we'll tighten the vise down and then make sure we're still on that line. And if we are still on the line, then I'll loosen the vise up a little bit and center up that hole using this pointer. Yeah, we look like we're still there, so loosen this up a little bit. We'll bring the pointer down again until it gets right in the center of that hole. Put that center of that mark. Tighten it down, and we're ready to drill. This will be 3/8 inch holes for these two that are going to go on each of these mounts. They look pretty good. Tighten this down. I didn't need to tighten it down, but I tightened it down with a chuck. So we'll start off with making our pilot, and then we'll go to, this is going to be a 3/8 inch finish. I'm not going to make it a 3/8 inch clearance, so I'm just going to make it a 3/8 inch diameter hole. I don't think I need to have any clearance besides just 3/8 of an inch for the bolt. We'll drill that hole, and then this one will be done, and then we can go on to the other one. And then all the drilling is going to be done on these replacement brackets for the lower die. That'll be a good thing. I'm gonna hit the sharpen up. I finished drilling all the holes in this lower die support. So now I want to put a mark right here in the center between these pattern of holes. That'll be an alignment mark. So I'm going to use a Dremel tool with a thin cutoff wheel, and I'm just going to describe a line, you know, just cut down in a little bit. And I'm going to do the same on the upper die. I'm going to scribe a line across here, and then I'm going to also cut a light groove across the bottom and then a little bit up on the ends on both sides. And that'll make it so that when I'm setting this up in the machine, I can line everything up so that this die is coming down dead center on this lower support. So let's go to work and get that done. Just going to take the dividers that I've already set to the right distance. I'm just going to scribe a line. And I'm also going to do on the end, probably just going to go up a little ways, but I still mark up. Do the same on this end here. I have a decent line. It's not scribing real well, and it's kind of hard to see. Start down here. I'll put a narrow notch on here also. This will be kind of hard to do because I'm going to have to hold it at an angle. I'm not going to be able to hold it flat. Doesn't have to be that deep, it just has to be noticeable. I can always grind it a little bit deeper. My next step is to make a back gauge for this bender. So I can adapt an existing back gauge that I use for my other press brake bender. For this, I'm going to be making like a horseshoe shaped bracket that will adapt that back gauge to this bender. So I'm going to be using 1/8 by 1.5 inch flat steel stock, and I cut this piece to 2 5/8 inch long. So what I want to do is I want to determine the bend allowance I need for an 1/8 inch material. So I'm going to put this in, and I'll get my ruler, and I'm going to get the piece to set 1 inch out on both sides. So the 5/8 inch is going to be taken up in here and by the pin. So I'm right at 1 inch on both sides. And once I get this bend made, then I can calculate what the distance I need to use to make that horseshoe. So we're right there where we want to be. I'm using my original bulldozer die. And we got it right on. So let's hold it. Let's bend a 90 on this. Since it's 1/8 inch, it's kind of high on the capacity of the bender, so I just brought the rod all the way out, just a little bit off from 90. So we're going to take a measurement and see what that distance is now. So that bend height, let me get it where I can see. It appears to be 1 3/8 of an inch. Just about 1/8 of an inch then is your bend allowance. So you need to subtract off 1/8. So if you wanted this bend to be 1 inch, you would take and set the bender to bend at 0.875 or 7/8. Based on the math that I calculated, it's going to be 10.156 to the center of the bend. So I need to take 5/16 off of that. So that is now 9.844 inches. So I got my square set to that. So I'll put this in and we'll set this way so I can get the square where it needs to be. And then I'll go back, trying to hold everything at one time, make it a square. Making a square is going to be the problem, I think. Based on my calculations, this is where we need to be. So let's bend it. Bend up a 90. Well, the best we can get to a 90. And see if we ended up with a 10.25 inches. Let me get my ruler out. I don't want to change anything on there. Wow, we're over a 1/16 of an inch. I think we can. I don't like that, but I think we're going to have to live with it. So let's do the other bend. Put it in the same. We'll go this direction with this one. Maybe we'll be off the opposite direction now. Watch it be off the opposite direction. That's going to be messed up. Make sure we're square at the bottom. We're not square there. Let's bring the part back this way a little bit. This will be impossible to demonstrate or edit. I think I need to do another whole video on this. Okay, we got a 90. As you can see, it's not forming a 90 for sure. I'll have to form the 90. But let's take some measurements here real quick. This dimension need to be 8.5, which it's, wow, that's pretty much, that's almost exactly 8.5. And these need to be 10 1/4. This is 10 and just about 5/16. This one over here is pretty much just under 10 1/4. So we have our horseshoe. Like I said, we'll just have to bend this 90 since the bulldozer, it's a little bit, 1/8 inch is a little bit much for that bender. So we'll finish bending this thing into a 90 and then we'll start laying out our holes. I got the horseshoe marked out. I already drilled one hole in it. That's what the horseshoe shape is going to be. And there's a drawing of the horseshoe. So we're going to finish drilling the rest of the holes. We got 3 holes on each side, a total of 6 holes, and then 2 on each side are going to be convert from holes to slots. Okay, I got this piece pretty well done with the slots in it now. I'm going to put a shaft collar that's 3/8 inch diameter. I'm going to weld that onto this piece. I got just a bolt to hold it square in place because this is what I'm going to be using, this router guide. I'm going to use this to be my back gauge for this. I used it also on my other bender. So we're going to interface this to this also. So we'll have, this will be used 2 different places now. So I'm just going to weld this on real quick and then we'll be ready to put everything together and we'll do a test here real soon. Okay, we'll start putting this together. We're going to put this over here, our adapter, and we'll start with put one of our rollers in place. Not real easy, but it's doable. So since we're going to be bending 1/2 inch material, I decided to run the lower dies at the farthest distance apart from each other. Okay, got that done. Now we can take our router guide, or what becomes our back gauge, set that in. And in there. So it's good. And we got 2 set screws we can tighten down onto the shaft. All right, let's start putting this thing together. First thing we'll do is we'll put the upper die in. It should go right in there. We'll just tighten it up a little bit and leave the wrench here because we're going to square it. I probably want to get a little bit squarer than that. Okay, we'll leave the wrench there. Place the lower die in. Just have some channels I don't want to use and some rod with threaded ends I want to use to support this. So I'll just put this in the center part of the strut. And line that up in the hole. And bring it up to the bottom. This should keep the lower die from moving around. So it should move around a little bit. I want to bring this down a little bit. Made a new release knob. Just 3D printed a piece of plastic. And then I made a place to put my handle. That's new. Bring this thing down to a place where we can start making adjustments based on the lines that we put here and the line we put on there. We'll adjust the upper and lower dies. I'll have to slide this down anyway. And we'll turn this square, or square it up to the lower die. You see it's definitely off a little bit. I have a 12-inch rule that I can use to lay here on those lines, line everything up. We're probably pretty close to where I want to be. I'm going to square this up just a little bit more. I know this is definitely, you can visually see that's not square. So we'll get it where it's looks visually square. And then we'll line up the lower die to this upper die marks. So I got that marked there. I need to come back. Let's see if we got to release just a little bit. There, it's off there now. I had the upper die down too low. It was hitting the ruler. Okay, we line up this side here, looks good. Let me go on this side and get that line up good. Now there is some play on this side to side, but I don't think it's going to really affect us a lot. But we do need to come back this way a little bit. Yeah, now it's in the middle. It's kind of hard to see this side here, but we can kind of eyeball it, I think. For just a little bit, I think we got it right there. So now we got the upper and lower dies. It's aligned. For the last part of this video, I'm going to be demonstrating on how to make accurate bends with this. I'm going to be describing the bend calculations that I use to make bends with pretty much any bender that I have. So with that, let's go to work. Okay, the back gauge is set from this face to the center of the die is at 8 inches. So plus I marked put a mark at the 8-inch with a piece of chalk. So put this in, make sure it's touching the back, and then we'll start making the bend. Get this lined up right, and then I'll double check, make sure everything looks good before I start bending. Bring this down to kind of clamp. That's going to clamp that part in from moving anywhere. Looks nice and square on the back. Now, to start, I'm going to bend this to 90 degrees. So I'll use this angle gauge. Make sure it's set on degrees. Okay, it's at 0 right now, so we'll start cranking. We want to go to 90 degrees, and then we'll take and make a measurement. This is the first time bending ½ inch, so this is brand new to that. I haven't done anything since I did the original 3/8 inch piece. So this will be all new. We're at 21 degrees right now. 20.9, it's 21. Figured doing this bend here first would be easier to make this bend first and then come back and change it from a 90 up to 115. See how close we are. I know we got a ways to go. 33.7. So we're probably better than halfway there. Everything seems to be going fine. Let's see where we are now. 40.1. I don't want to overshoot it well, we can overshoot it a little bit because we're going to keep it going to 115 degrees. But like I said, this is how we're going to get our original geez, I keep saying to get our bend allowance. We'll determine it with this. So the closer it is, it's at 45.7, so just a little over bend, but it should spring back a little bit. So we're going to release it there, put this back up here. I need to release it all the way because we'll be putting it back in here in a minute. There's what, and it wasn't quite, I don't believe that's 90 degrees right there, 90-degree bend, but for taking the measurements we need to take, I think we're doing good. It's got a nice raise. The paint wore out, or my new paint wore off, but it looks pretty good. So let's go over and take a measurement, see what our allowance is going to be. Okay, this is not quite at 90, as you can see, but taking this measurement from here out, our bend allowance is a plus 0.5, which is plus a ½ inch that we're going to gain. So this leg that we had marked at 8 inches is now 8.5, and this leg that we had marked that was 28 is now 28.5, with just a little bit 28 and 9/16. But this side don't look like it's got 9/16 actually. So it's a ½ inch that is gained on the bend. So if you wanted this, now we want this to be, I don't know if I'll get this sighted in. No. Let me sight this in. So this bend is going to ultimately be this bend. So I'm going to finish making that bend for there. But we want this to be 14 inches. So we'll have to subtract a ½ inch. So we'll make that mark from this edge to here, our center, will be 13.5 to get our 14 inches. So I'll double check that, make sure I'm right on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting all my math right. Sometimes you can't get your math wrong, but let me finish making this bend to the 115 degrees, and then we'll start cutting that piece to make the other one. Get this in best we can, lined up to the same place. We probably can't get it exactly lined up the same. But it's not going to matter if we're not the same exact place, because we're going to take everything at the ends are going to get cut off. We just want the distance between the two bends to be right. If I'm up a little higher, I just cut off more on the pedestal. So that's why I'm not concerned. I want to get this squared back up pretty good, but if I'm off a little bit, I'm not going to be too concerned. This should fall right into it. It should fall right into place though, more or less. But being that it is a radius, it's not going to always fall exactly right, but it should. I'm pretty sure it fell into its right place. So we're going to that, we're 46 degrees, which I think we're close. So we want 115, so we need our thing to say 57, and we need to be at 57.5, but we'll have to overbend a little bit to get 57.5. I ended up getting this angle real close to being right, so you can just look here and see that when you lay it against there, just about, maybe just a little bit overbent, slightly overbent, but I don't think that's really going to affect us that much. I prepared this piece of metal for the second bend by cutting 5 inches to the bend line. It was longer, and this is going to be 14 inches from the back of here to the back of that bend. So to get that, I need to have my bend line at 13.5 inches. So I'm subtracting the ½ inch from the bend length. And this being 5 inches means that this leg is going to be 5.5 inches sticking up on the outside of the leg. So I have this all ready to bend, and I think this is going to work right. I've been kind of not sure. I've been a little bit leery about making this bend, but so let's go to work and make this bend. I set my back gauge back here to 5 inches from the center of this die, upper die, well, the die. So I have to put that in until I feel this at the back stop. That's square. I'm happy with what I ended up with. I think it turned out good for the first bend. Overall, I'm happy with how this thing turned out and how well it bent. There was a little quirk there on this last bend trying to make this last 90, and you can see I nicked my cylinder or jack, but I think it turned out pretty good for some ½ inch by 3. I don't know if you really noticed, but I made put little brackets on here to hold this handle. I've always kind of just threw it on the top of here, and half the time I'm carrying it around and leave it on the bench somewhere, so I gotta go get it. So these brackets were real simple. I just took a piece of, or a ½ inch conduit clamp with a single hole, and I formed it to make it so that it would use the existing holes that support the spring. So I had to drill this out a little bit to a bigger diameter, but I just put it on the press and just banged this little tang straight, and I had to open up this a little bit so that'd go in there. So that was a real easy addition. So this is a, I think I got this around 09 or something like that, I think, or 2010, somewhere in there. I don't know if they still have the same configuration for that, but I didn't want to have to weld anything on here or do any drilling holes. The other thing is I have this knob for the release. I just downloaded a gear from McMaster Car, and it had some body to it, filled it up and made a X pattern with a hole that fits this release valve, and had it 3D printed, and these things were $4 a piece or something like that. So I had that, and that works super nice. And the gears make it easy to give good grip, and I'm happy with that. Happy with this. I'm happy with how the back gauge works. I would hate to do this bending without some kind of back gauge, because they're sitting here I can see you trying to line something up, you know, with the chalk lines and getting it right, and then having it turn crooked or have it move. But as it is, you just, well, I'm trying to get this thing out of here now. You just push the metal back till it hits that stop and start pumping down, and you can double check it before you really start pressing. Make sure that this edge is square against the back. So thanks for watching my channel. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you like what you're seeing on my channel, subscribe to my channel. I plan to continue making videos of a lot of different things. So that's the end for this video. So thanks again for watching.